suddenly I noticed that the animal rights people, of whom there's a powerful lobby, are against zoos, even though they do conservation work. And now currently we're breeding critically endangered amur leopards for reintroduction into the environment. And you need a zoo to do that. And but suddenly I was basically everybody's enemy. I said, okay, fine. I'm just trying to do the right thing here. I'd been a journalist before for 15 years, and I'd never employed anybody. I was a freelancer. I had my own hours. I worked mostly nocturnally. I'd take calls on the phone when I chose. And suddenly I'm in meetings at 8 o'clock in the morning, just before the school run, organising reluctant people who didn't get on with each other, and we had to employ new qualified keepers to sort of get us through regaining our license. And of course, then there's the old guard of the people who lived here and related to the previous owner, who've always done it in a particular way. And they were valuable because they knew how the place worked, but they were dinosaurs as far as the other guys are concerned. So I was sort of like the common enemy of both of them. I was the evil man who, maybe I had designs on monetizing the animals. This was a big thing at the time, because I've always been interested in animal sentience and animal psychology and animal rights. And I was writing a book to promote animal rights while I was in France. And suddenly I noticed that the animal rights people, of whom there's a powerful lobby, are against zoos, even though they do conservation work. And now currently we're breeding critically endangered amur leopards for reintroduction into the environment. And you need a zoo to do that. And but suddenly I was basically everybody's enemy. I said, okay, fine. I'm just trying to do the right thing here. And I just had to work out. Everybody was there for a reason in terms of the staff. Everybody had something to contribute. And I just had to highlight that all the time. And, some people have weaknesses, and just don't focus on that. Bring out the strengths, bring out the contributions, trying to make everybody involved. But we all had this shared mission. We knew that we had to get our zoo license back, which involved raising standards, which were there, and focusing in on the animal care is always a common denominator. So it's animal first. Then I thought staff well-being is the next thing, and then you can think about visitor appeal and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was a bit of a baptism of fire, and a lot of juggling, but juggling fire, I guess. But it was all about communication, which, being a journalist, was I was used to that. I was used to sifting opinions, working out where the common ground was, and that's usually your article. But in this case, it was just a course of action. Well, this is something I've been passionate about my whole life, and it only began to dawn on me when I was kind of at university studying psychology. There's a term called biophilia, coined by a sociobiologist, E.O. Wilson, and he's basically put numbers on the amount by which nature enhances your well-being. And we are animals. We're designed to be outside, looking at green things and foraging and hunting and all these things. Whereas most of the time you're stuck in a square office room with upright lighting, looking at a screen, sitting, and we're not supposed to be doing that. And one of the things that we do here, we've got 30-acre site full of trees. Every autumn, a lot of leaves come down for a long time. And if you're paying people to sweep up leaves when they should be doing other things, it's impossible. So I ended up getting volunteers to come and help. And in our case, we're lucky we live near to EE, the phone company, and they have 800 people in a call center, which is a big sort of industrial shed, strip lit. They're being monitored by their line managers for their call efficiency, it's got to be a 750-second call is average, with 2 upsells, and then customer satisfaction is rated. So that's pressure. And the Plimpton guys are the complaints department for all of EE. So all of the complaints go to Plimpton. So you've got 800 people just getting complaints all day on the phone being monitored. And they have 2 volunteer days a year. And we sent out some emissaries. We went down and pitched to them and said, oh, yeah, come up to the zoo and volunteer for us. And they jumped at it. And they start raking leaves for us every autumn in teams. And they love it. They absolutely love it. They're beaming. They're out there in the rain, raking it, because they're doing something. They've achieved a thing. They've moved, they've cleared a path. They've created a pile. They've developed a sweat. They've worked as a team, and nobody's shouting at them at all. And they've noticed that when they go back to work, their customer satisfaction rates go through the roof, and they stay through the roof for more than a month after one visit. And so I went and did a talk to EE senior management about this, and they upped the days. They do 3 volunteer days a year, because it makes money for them to come and be in nature, because their raw material of people are animals. We're all animals that need to be outside at some point in the day. And I feel really passionate about this. I'm actually writing another book called The Hominid, which is about that. It's about remembering that we're an accidentally bird-like animal, and look after this big monkey like you would look after a monkey. And we forget to do that with ourselves. And so yeah, I'm very. That's one of my absolute passions is nature therapy, effectively. Well, in that instance, I mean, we've encouraged them to have plants in their workspace, and that's the thing. But the plants die, and they wither in the light, and it's really something that people can. They have to be made aware of how powerful that nature is, what an impact it has on human beings, and how much we actually need it for our survival. We do run programs here of other corporate volunteers, but also SEND children, special educational needs, and they found that there are several SEND schools around here who contribute to small maintenance tasks that we do. There's one in particular called the Wave Academy, and they've been coming for 7 or 8 years. And these are children with incredibly problematic backgrounds, unbelievable. I mean, we've heard one of the lads who comes up, who's been misbehaving, not here, but he's been misbehaving at the school, and he's brought here. He has to sleep with the dog. He doesn't have a bedroom. He's sleeping in a dog basket. And we're like, so you look at these kids and you think, this is the very best thing that ever happens to them at the moment in their lives, is being here, helping to build a new meerkat enclosure. And they respond, partly the mentoring of the incredible staff that they have, and our guys we're all mental health aware, first aid trained. And as I say, we employ nice people who are already empathetic to this stuff. But you can see them coming to life. It's like, a tightly defense. It's like a little flower that's just kind of finding, is it safe? Is it safe? And they come out. And we've noticed at the end of their project, they don't come in from their break. They don't come for their break because they're too busy off at, a carpentry joint. They go, I'm just, and it's a really powerful thing. And it's a real privilege to work alongside them, because they look at you. You're one of the few safe adults that they have in their lives. There's the teachers, and if you're introduced by the teachers, you're suddenly someone to be listened to and trusted, as opposed to anyone else who's a potential danger. And nature is part of that. If they do have, they start to get the heebie-jeebies and have a meltdown, they're allowed to go and look at the tigers and sit and chill and come back when they've been refreshed. And we found that those guys have a 97% employment rate, having done the work at the zoo over the last 7 years. We keep track of all of them, and only 3% of them are not employed, and which is way above the national average for normal school leavers, which I don't know what that is, it's about less than 80%, but they know what it's like to be on the outside, and we've shown them how, through the animals and the nature and the mentoring, that there is a positive world there that they can join into if they do these certain things, behave in a certain way, just be polite, look people in the eye, don't be disruptive, no matter how you're feeling, and they love it. They grab it with both hands and they stay employed. And so from a workplace point of view, obviously, I would just say, come and do some sort of volunteering outside. Most big workplaces do have volunteer days allocated. Make sure it's in a park outside, doing something outside. And if it's just down to the individual, walk to work, walk through the park, be near a tree. I was thinking how, from my book point of view, how does this extrapolate to central London, where I used to live? I used to live in the Elephant Castle. Didn't even notice it was autumn until you left the city. You think, oh, look, all the trees have changed. It's like, oh, it's autumn, is it? Okay. So leave the city or go to parks, Have your lunch, walk to a park to have your lunch. Even in Soho Square. Soho is one of the most urbanised boroughs. And there is a square there with at least one tree. I remember, you can go and stand under that tree and eat your lunch. And you'll feel significantly better than if you eat your lunch at your desk or, you can go to a cafe, whatever. Be outside and breathe like an animal near a tree. That's my advice.
Oh, it's amazing. Completely agree. My husband's American. He's from Texas, and he moved to the UK about 7 years ago. And the one thing he said was like, there's so many trees. There's so much greenery here. There's not just full of car parks. And he was like, it's changed my life living somewhere that is surrounded by so much nature.
Yeah, there's a guy, I was at some physio recently, and the guy's from Canada, and I said to him, mate, what are you doing in Plymouth? Canada? And he said, it's for the nature. He said, the nature is in the towns, it's everywhere. Where in Canada, it's like you have a city and then there's the wilderness. And here, you've got a river running through the village where he practices. And it was the thing that lured us back from France, actually. Although I was having the most amazing life living in France, writing a book in the sunshine. When I came to look at this place, just to rule it out, I looked at the trees and I thought, whoa, look at those moss on the bark, wow. And then I realised it's because it rains every single day. Yeah. Well, certainly in our case, conservation is our core subject. The animals are all. That's not going to be true. The animals are predominantly endangered, and we're involved in breeding programs to try to reintroduce them. There are things that we do have to have, like meerkats, who are not endangered. If you've got meerkats, there's basically a public outcry. And we're very lucky, we've just got some baby meerkats, which is just like gold dust catnip. And they are just amazingly cute. And the people who cluster around the meerkat buying ice creams are also paying for the vet care for the Amur leopards to be mating, and the huge costs of reintroducing an Amur leopard back into the wild, which of course everybody is also in favour of, but it's not quite as compelling as, you can't even see it happening. And maybe if the couple's born, we will get to have it briefly before it's sent overseas. But you need to have your core value of conservation activity supported by other things. And in our case, it's meerkats and it's various other stuff. But we have to be very careful about our carbon footprint, which we measure very, and we're interested in the natural capital value of the site as opposed to just the raw value of it. It's the amount that we save the health service in terms of medication. We take volunteers with depression who would have been on Prozac, and we give them a trade and put them to work. There was a guy quite recently who was literally prescribed Prozac down in Plimpton, or given the option of coming here, and he's 22 here, and we put him on a brush cutting course, basically strimming, so that he got a qualification, and 2 weeks later he had a job on the council strimming hedgerows, and he doesn't need Prozac. Now he's paying tax, and instead of being at home waiting for the Prozac to kick in, costing, this site has a value in producing people who can then go back out and contribute to society. And it's very hard for every business. I was thinking this about, if you're manufacturing photocopiers or you're selling photocopiers in milk teens or something like this, and how does the environment work here? But it's little things that individuals can do. It doesn't have to be, if your company is, it just doesn't have an overlap with it. I mean, maybe, think about moving to a company that does. There's a huge shift in the power of the green movement in terms of the investments. So many investors now will only invest in things that don't damage the environment. And I've read this week, globally, renewable energy has overtaken coal for the first time, more than 50%. For the first 6 months, and it's like, you can argue about what's happening, but there it is. It can happen. It is happening. And so people are increasingly investing in that area, even if, there is an environmentally toxic way of doing something. It makes more financial sense to be leaning into the green alternative. And it's down to individuals. It's a mindset thing. And if you, one of the things I'd say as well is get a plant. I'm really bad with plants. I've all my life. My mum used to say, dig this, dig that, and I'd go and dig things, and I accidentally dig up the wrong thing. But if I had a house plant, it would definitely die. But there's a guy called Pedram Shojai he's written a book called The Urban Monk, and he's got these little aphorisms of how to live your life, and I kind of looked at quite interested in that stuff. And one of these things is just get a plant and look after it. And I thought, I can do that. I can do one plant. Surely I can do one plant. And I did. Look at my plant. There he is. He was given to me. He's a rescue plant. And he was in the office over there, withered and dry. And I thought, he just needs light and water. And he was a tenth of that size. And I need to water maybe 2 or 3 days and move him around and stuff. And he's blooming. And it feels so good. It feels so good. I feel really, like I've got a little thing. If I go away, it's like, who's going to look after my plant? And I make sure someone does. And it's that sort of sense of engagement that brings you to the wider world. So going back to biophilia research that I've done, that increases my efficiency. There was a fantastic study done with university students in exams, and they gave half of them pot plants on their desks, and the other half not. And the ones who had the pot plants got like 1 or 2% higher grades than the others. It's like, what? It's because we're animals, and this is soothing, and it's engaging. Well, I've been doing this a long time now, and I noticed that my audiences do take a lot away in terms of, it's quite a roller coaster. It's a story of overcoming lots of obstacles, and some of which are apparently insurmountable. And this tragedy, of course, of the death of my wife in the middle of it all. And often people come up to me, and people cry sometimes. Not saying it's all bad. People laugh a lot. I have to. If I haven't made them laugh 10 times, I get worried. But people come and, there's always a queue to people want to talk to me and shake hands and exchange details and things. And they always say it puts their problems in perspective, because it's almost unimaginable scenario. Nobody buys a zoo and goes through this amount of tragedy and then has a Hollywood movie made about them, and then that isn't even the end, because that's when stuff, HMRC are still coming in, and the rain, and and there are all these animals. When you've got animals at stake, it changes the stakes for everything, and people do come and say it's made them look at their problems in a different way. It's like, I thought I had problems, but the things I've got now, I can just go around them or over them or through them, or just wait until that's, like I was doing with the zoo mainly, often just taking little bites out of all the different problems. By the time you come back to the first one, it's changed. And it's that adaptive mindset, problem-solving mindset, and keeping calm and using what's available. And in my case, pretty well the only thing that was available was nature. Go outside and breathe and know that you're doing the right thing for the right reasons. And at the end of the day, we didn't have a television by choice, and but we did have tigers that were hand-reared, that would lick the kids' hands through the fence, and that's amazing. You take your kids, they got holes in their shoes. You don't want money for that, but they're like, can we go see Vlad? Can we go see Vlad? And Vlad is a 200-kilogram Siberian tiger who fucks at you and lick your hand, and of course his tongue is bigger than your hand, and it's like sandpaper. And I remember we were many times we had to struggle with the banks in the just after the recession, in particular in 2008-9, and the bank came up to foreclose on their overdraft, and I thought, that's the end if they do that. So come and see what we're about. I'm quite busy. And get right up against the fence with Vlad, and Vlad comes over and licks the hand, and they're like, whoa, this is amazing. Okay, yeah, I see. I'll give you another 6 months. This is the best. Yeah, exactly. You've done that. And of course, not every company can think, okay, well, I'll just get the tiger to lick the bank manager. But you've got to think sideways about what your priorities are, what your core mission is, and how you can possibly overcome the obstacles, and why you're doing it in the first place. And people come away and say, wow, it's made them think about all of those things.